care of the admin sector, you need to record this so that maybe I'll need to go over it again. I said in the past years, the concern in the media has been very tremendous. We've researched, we've written a lot of papers. I'm talking about research papers where the media is going. JJ, I'm talking about Jacob Akinyemi Johnson would agree with me that we started with reel to reel back in those days in Radio Nigeria, but today the reel to reel is gone, and there's this metamorphosis in the media arena, and of course we are concerned where the media would be in the next coming days, hence the need for this webinar. And I said the webinar is at the instance of Southern Examiner, an online paper based in the Washington DC, and of course that this is a third of its series. We did the first one in Nigeria. There was an outburst where there was an interview and a journalist misjived, and of course we looked at what's the best way to interview people as a journalist. And of course, the second one, we were talking about the pandemic, the unreported areas, the gray areas of this pandemic. And of course, today we are looking at this, a third of a series. We are looking at the media. I want to believe you can hear me. And I happen to be the editorial board chairman of these outfits. And of course, I told you that I've spent over 2 decades in the broadcast industry, Radio Nigeria, and of course I'm now with the University of Lagos as a faculty member that's in the broadcast sequence. And of course, I did tell you that my research area, it's sports communication, diaspora communication, and that was what took me to Howard University, where I did a study at the third generation Nigerians in the United States of America, in the area of media content and of course media metamorphosis, which is what is bringing us here today. Of course, my area of concern when we looked at these webinar, the last webinar we had, I think Professor Chuka, who was my supervisor at Howard University, did something, said that the media landscape is changing, and that got me thinking, and we had to put up something to make sure that we deliberate on the future of the media. Today you can see that there are robots, as cameraman, men, and of course, very soon you'll be seeing robots reading the news. And then as I'm talking to you, there's a software, a logarithm software that is used for editing news. So that means that in the next couple of days, the job of the editor might be shaky. I'm talking about in the broadcast industry. So I'll just go ahead and do the introductions. I have here with me Professor Anthony Van Witsen. Anthony Van Witsen is a faculty member in the Department of Communication and New Media at Alma College, Michigan, USA. He's also an alumni of Michigan State University, where he obtained his PhD. He has presented papers at several conferences. At least I met him at the ICA 2019 at, I think, Hilton Hotel, the DC area in the US. That's International Communication Association. And of course, he researches on how the media, on how science is affecting, that science and technology affects the operations. I'm talking about the daily operations of the media. I also have Professor Jennifer Thomas, which I also worked under her quite a while I was at Howard. She's an accomplished broadcast journalist who was with the CNN as an executive producer, and then later joined Howard University, Washington, DC. She teaches media content and production in the Department of Media, Journalism and Film, Howard University. She's also the coordinator of journalism sequence in the department, and she's more sought after at international conferences. I understand that 2019, while I was in the US, she was in Nigeria. She delivered a keynote lecture at the 2019 World Press Freedom Day in Nigeria. I think that was at the instance of the Guild Editors of Nigeria. Of course, she has also trained a lot of broadcast students in the US who have moved on to win media awards and are doing very well in the broadcast sector right now in the US and across the world. And of course, she's a Fulbright specialist, a program scholar. She's also the advisor Howard University Association of Black Journalists, that's in the US, and she researches in the area of the complex of facets of women, media, and images. media role as watchdog in ensuring a democratic society. And of course, she's a recipient of 2019 Script Howard Foundation Teacher of the Year. So, Jennifer, you are welcome. All right.
You.
I also have a panel. Yeah, thank you, Professor Thomas.
I also have with you. To you.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, Jennifer was also my colleague while I was at Howard University. Okay. I also have Jacob Akinyemi Johnson, also known as JAJ the Megadon. He's one of the first. He's one of the finest broadcast voices on the continent. He's an ex-broadcaster. One of the first voices on an FM radio station. I saw Sheyi Martin when Nigeria started the FM dial, moving from AM to FM dial. They were the first people that they used to test, the waters of FM transmission in Nigeria. He's presently the chief creative officer at Silverbird Group. He's the owner. That's the owners of Silverbird TV and Rhythm FM. He's a news anchor, and of course, I'm a news presenter, and currently presents Top 7 Jams at 7 on Rhythm FM. I also have here with me Mr. Kingsley Uranta. He needs no introduction. A seasoned broadcast journalist, and of course, I'm a broadcast manager of over 2 decades. He has worked with the British American Tobacco. He's also worked with the BBC Action Media Training Group, and of course with Guinness Company. He's currently the Assistant General Manager, Corporate Communication Operations and Training, Channels Television Lagos, and he's also the Director of Training at Channels Academy. I just have to run through this so that we recognize those that have joined us. We'll kickstart the conversation very soon. Also joining us is Mr. Akinyemi. Sorry, you might not hear me using Mr. because in the broadcast, in the broadcast sector, we don't really know Mr., Mrs. and all of that. We just go straight to the name. So I have here Akin Akinyemi is the CEO of Synterface Media Initiative in the UK. He owns a virtual studio. I'm not talking about an online I'm not talking about an online radio or an online TV. He owns a virtual studio. Both the transmitter, everything is there in the cloud. So he will get to tell us how he does that. I also have here with me, I want to believe that Prof has joined us here, Professor Kebuma Langmia, the current chair of the Department of Strategic Legal Management and Communication. He's the current HOD, as we call it in Nigeria, head of the department. He's well published, and he researches in the area of African communication, and ICT. Is also a Fulbright scholar. I also have here Bimbo Oloyede. She's the first female voice on Nigeria's network news. That's at Nigerian Broadcast Authority. So the gender balance is there. She's the first female voice on NTA. And some days back, we celebrated International Women's Day. So you're welcome, ma'am. She's the lead consultant at Strictly Speaking. And then we also have Idris Adeshina. Idris Adeshina used to be my colleague at Radio Nigeria, season editor. Currently, he's the CEO of AlternativeAfrica.com in the UK. And then Dennis Benz Rolak. Dennis Ben Rolak is the publisher of the Washington, D.C. That's in the United States of America. You're welcome, ma'am. I also have Dr. Des Wilson, a well-researched scholar on, he's a professor emeritus. He just retired, I think, last year at University of Uyo. He's one of the grandfathers of African communication systems. That I'm talking about the traditional modes of communication. He's well researched in that area. I also have here with us Professor Yannick Rice-Lamb. She's the immediate past chair, the Department of Media, Journalism and Film, Howard University. A versatile scholar in the area and researcher in the area of health communication and, of course, magazine study. In Nigeria, we call it magazitology. All right, you're welcome, ma'am. I also have the first female professor of mass communication in the Department of Mass Communication in the University of Lagos. She's just the immediate past HOD of University of, I'm talking about HOD of Mass Communication, University of Lagos. I also have Professor Joseph Wilson, the immediate past head of Department Mass Communication, University of Maiduguri. And of course, he's the editor, media and communication current, a journal of the Department of Mass Communication, University of Maiduguri. When you hear University of Maiduguri, Maiduguri is where you have a lot of terrorist activities in that area. So he's going to be telling us how he's been able to keep his head high and, of course, using technology to make sure that learning is seamless. I also have here with me Sonia Ross. She's the managing partner and editor-in-chief, Black Women Unmuted USA. And, of course, she has joined us. And then Dr. Adepoju Tejumaya is an associate professor in the Department of Mass Communication, University of Lagos. And then Dr. Ngozi Okpala is the HOD of Mass Media and Writing Department at Pan-Atlantic University here in Lagos. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you. I also have here Sheyi Martins. Sheyi Martins is, of course, one of the first voices you heard, we heard back those days on the FM dial in Radio Nigeria. And of course, we also have engineer Kane there. Is also the head of ICT, National Broadcast Academy, Nigeria. I want to believe that when others join, I will need to, welcome them and then do a proper introduction. Now, let's kickstart. I did give each and every one of us, topic that we are just going to be discussing. And then I will first start from Professor Anthony Van Witsing. He's going to tell us, he researches in the area of science and technology. So he's going to tell us briefly what has been added, what he has researched and found out what has been added to the media, in the past days, and how this would affect, or of course, impact the daily operations of the media. Prof, can you have the floor?
Thank you so much. What I was going to say was that we see the kind of upheavals that are going on in the media today, and they are so technologically oriented, and there's so many new technologies exploding onto us almost every day. The explosion and the proliferation of social media, for example, the fact that accurate information and inaccurate information can go around the world in 2 mouse clicks, can lead us to believe very, very easily that we are living in an unprecedented time of upheaval that's never happened before. But if you look at the whole history of media technology, one of the things that becomes very clear is that there have been media revolutions in the past, and there have been media revolutions almost continuously as long as there has been media, particularly since the Industrial Revolution created the first modern mass media. And that the disruption caused by the growth of mass circulation journalism, for example, in the 19th century was almost as disruptive in its own time as the disruptions caused by electronic media and digital media today. Same thing happened when the first broadcast media appeared and began to challenge the monopoly of newspapers. This was something that the newspapers are very, very uncomfortable with, not only the journalists themselves, but their managers, their overseers, who saw it as a threat to their advertising, as a threat to their business model. And sometimes didn't want to really give them much attention, even admit that they existed. So I would say that overall, we really do need to be wary of freedom and the threats to our ability to do professional quality reporting and defend the First Amendment or the freedom of speech around the world with new technologies. But it's also very, very important that we try and figure out how we can use those technologies to our own advantage. And that lies not so much within the technologies, it lies within our own imaginations about how we might be able to do things.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Whitson, for that lovely, take you've given on, one of the things that you have found out in the media that might impact, the operations of the media in the days to come. Now I want to call on Professor Jennifer Thomas. Jennifer Thomas, please, can you have the floor?
Yes, and good morning. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. And I want to say a hearty good morning or good afternoon, good day, good evening, wherever we are in the world, to my other distinguished panelists and all the guests that are joining us. I think if I were to just piggyback on what Dr. Whitson talked about, I think my perspective, of course, is as both a practitioner for more than 20 years, as well as a professor. And if we look at our topic of today, the future of media, I think it's important for us to recognize what has brought us to this place where we are. And a couple of things I'll just quickly say as an introduction is one of the things I often share with my class at the beginning of each semester is my personal quote about journalism. And then I charge them with coming up with theirs as well. And for me, it's that journalists are the defenders of democracy, freedom fighters of the First Amendment, and savvy and sophisticated storytellers. But as we have this discussion about the future, we really kind of have to shine a spotlight on ourselves as both practitioners and as media educators as we look ahead. As they say, you have to put on your life vest first before you start save the person that's next to you. Another quote I like to share is the one that says, "The media is the most influential enterprise in a democratic society, instrumental in the transmission of cultural values." And I think with what's going on today, is all a result of this wonderful thing called convergence, right? We have all the forms of media that are all here together. It's exploded, it's collided, it somewhat seems uncontrollable. And now, because we are getting so much of our information through social media, that what we are hearing and the media, what we're sharing, is impacting everything in our society. It impacts how we learn and decipher and digest information. It affects the way we live, the way we educate our children, the way we worship. And so I think we have to remember that we are both conveyors of that information, and we're consumers. And so the challenge, I think, for us as media professionals is a three-pronged approach, and that is that we have to be truthful, timely, and transparent. And I think that's a challenge that we have, as what the professor before me mentioned, because everything is at warp speed. And I'll just leave it there for now, but there's much more to say. But I think we have to challenge ourselves to be more truthful, timely, and transparent in this environment that we're in, this proliferation of so many media outlets backed upon the accusations of journalists and media as being fake news.
So please, I want to ask before you drop your microphone, I just want to ask, have there been few additions you've seen in the media that has baffled, a few things that you've seen in the media that have baffled you, that have tickled your fancy, and that has made you curious?
In terms of coverage itself, or the way in which coverage is?
The coverage, and of course the operations, and of course that electronically, that if some of us don't go back to school, we may not know how to operate them, or that can threaten the media labor. I'm talking about the media market in terms of employment, replacing human resources. Sure. And then human efforts.
So I'll put it like this, during September 11th, and as you noted, so I was a producer, I was the 9 a.m. producer at CNN on September 11th, helping to lead coverage. At that time, everyone was watching the traditional media outlets to get their news. So people were tuned in around the world to CNN and other cable news outlets. We were on 24/7, but people had that thirst of information. What I see now, in light of what we've had this past, we're really on the year anniversary of the pandemic, is there's so much more coverage because you cannot get away from this information. So we're seeing it in every form of social media, through TikTok, right? Through Instagram, through Twitter, and we're seeing all these new and different ways that people are presenting the news and presenting their stories. We're having to adapt to produce, and I do broadcast, like some of my colleagues here, to produce our content in an online modality. So it's challenging us to find different ways of presenting the news. But because there's so much of it, I think we're being consumed with that saying TMI. Sometimes it's too much information because we can't get away from it. And I think that can cause a negative effect, but we have so many more options that are available to us now because of all the different ways that we can use technology. It's also when you speak about hiring and how it's affecting that, I think it's good and both good and bad. We're able to, a lot of organizations are using fewer people because we're seeing that through technology, it doesn't take so many people to produce a newscast. We can do everything in this box here where we are. But at the same time, we want to still make sure that we're telling those stories in those communities and that we're sharing the stories that we're here to talk about today. And we need people to do that. A robot and a computer can't share the heartache of a story of a love for someone that's lost a loved one due to COVID-19. So there's still the importance of effective journalism, and we still need solid journalists to do it. We just have so many more outlets, and we just have to be mindful of how we share that information.
All right, thank you. At this point, then I'll also call a practitioner. She's been there for decades, over 40 years of the media industry, and we discussed yesterday, and he was just jittery about some things. I sent him a question he would address because he talked about I'm talking about Jacob Akinyemi Johnson, an ex-broadcaster, JJ, and he was talking about the question of creativity and all of that. So, JJ, what do you think the metamorphosis, I'm talking about the changing landscape, in the media industry? You are the chief creative officer at Silverbird Group. And of course, how would these, I used to listen to your top jams, the way you present it, the way you bring the mannerisms and all of that to make sure that in this country, a lot of people look up to some upcoming broadcasters, look up to sound like you, of course, to be like you. So how do you think these robotics, these innovations in the media industry, our darling industry, how do you think it might affect creativity?
Well, thank you for having me here. And I'd like to say hello to everyone who is listening and watching. You sent two questions to me. You currently jumped the gun, and the first one was that how have technological advances impacted upon media practice? That was the first question you sent to me. So I would like to dwell on that first before I go on to the question that just asked, which actually is the second question. Well, technological advances has made media convergence possible, in that lines between traditional media and social media, for instance, have been permanently blurred. Now, is that good or a bad thing? Well, I guess that depends on who is answering. But one obvious fallout is the blurring of facts and fiction, now popularly known as fake news. And this has also given information dissemination a wider audience, which is good, and a new meaning, which is also good, as more people can now access information. But in the same vein, disseminate information or misinformation, as the case may be, via the ubiquitous mobile phone. So it has given practically everybody with a phone, a laptop, a tablet, a voice to vent. And obviously it has fragmented and shrunk audiences of traditional media outlets. So your other question was the area of creativity. Well, I'll tell you how it has affected that area you mentioned. It has instigated a proliferation of gate crashers, into what was hitherto a regulated space with the—
How did you call that?
Standards.
What
Sorry?
do you mean? Gray what?
No, I said gate crash.
Okay.
It has instigated a proliferation of gate crashers, into what was hitherto a regulated space with the attendant, crashing of standards. The basic ethics of promotion of decency and truth have become casualties to media convergence. However, professionals who manage to thrive in the new environment stand out as their training and pedigree offers them an advantage. And for the time being, terrestrial radio, for instance, appears to still command a significant audience. But I guess it must keep the charlatans at bay. And sadly, they seem to be creeping in. So now to the area of aesthetics. You talked about the reel-to-reel, which was many, many years ago. I remember when we started, programs were played back on reel-to-reel and recorded onto reel-to-reel. And we also had the cartridges to play back commercials. And in such a short period, I thought it was a short period, it actually is a short period, all that has changed, you know, from the reel-to-reel to the DAT tapes, the digital audio tapes, and that was the beginning of digital audio sound, to what we have now. You can put so much on a hard drive. I remember back in the day, we had piles and piles and cartons of cartridges, pretty much of the music as well. I mean, with vinyl. I remember I used to carry a bag of about 80 records to the studio, and I know how heavy it was. You don't need to do any of that now. You could have it on your phone. Now these are great advantages that we have now, that technology has provided. You also talked about the robots reading the news. Well, it is not impossible. Actually, it is very possible. However, like one of the earlier talkers mentioned, you're going to have a robot who's going to come on with no emotions. So he goes from a story, a happy story, to a story about a tragedy with no emotion, possibly the same tone, same speed. And quite frankly, who want to sit down and watch a robot address you? When I saw RoboCop many years ago, I liked the movie a lot. And the lesson from that movie was, when there's a glitch, everyone else saw RoboCop 1. When there's a glitch, RoboCop is meant to be an incorruptible police officer, which he was. But when there was a glitch, everybody and shot everyone in sight. So I think we shouldn't, as much as we depend on technology for a lot of stuff, over-dependent, there still has to be that human angle. And like one of the earlier speakers also mentioned, there's so many things not covered by robots that still need to be covered by humans. Yes, you don't need as many people as you used to produce a news bulletin or program on radio or television. But you also need a lot more people than you did then to do research, because there wasn't a lot of research back in the day. So, in some areas you need less, and in some other areas you need more. Because the truth is, technology has helped us so much in terms of content. You have so much content. Actually, you can't even deal with the amount of content you have. So that enriches your programs, your news programs, your regular programs, your music programs. So for me, what is going on is welcome news.
Okay.
But as I mentioned earlier on, I'm against doing stuff or not. But I don't want a situation, or rather, I wouldn't welcome a situation where robots have to do everything.
All right. Thank you so much, Jacob Akiyemi Johnson. That's well noted. That's what is going to affect. I want to please implore to some of our students that have just joined. I mean, when students join, you know that they've joined. It's everywhere in the world. Please lower your volume, and of course, not only lower, but kill your you can talk. Ayela Toluk Leke, please can you kill your volume? Just kill Toluk, please kill your volume. Yeah, and then so that we will have a very smooth conversation. We have people watching us from all over the world. We are not in a classroom. We are now in a global space. All right. I want to call Mr. Kingsley Ranta. Mr. Kingsley Ranta is the Assistant General Manager, Corporate Communication, of course, Director Training, and of course, Operations at Channels Media Group. That's the owners of Channels Television. Mr. Ranta, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much indeed. My great pleasure to sit on the same table with my senior colleagues, teachers and professors, some of whom I was listening and watching while I was growing up. Mrs. Bimbo, Loyede, JJ, and co. So it's my great pleasure. When JJ spoke a few minutes ago, he talked about reel to reel. Well, I didn't meet reel to reel in my profession, my professional life. I actually began with VHS tapes, moved on to Umatic, moved on to Betacam SP, and so on and so forth. And when we started really talking about 1992, it was passion, creativity, the urge to do things that had never been done before that were the propelling force behind that. I remember I and then Joseph Yubo of NTA being the first to contribute to CNN World Report then. And that was just when Nigeria was liberalizing the broadcast landscape. And then I happened to start with the Channels Television as one of the first private television stations. And then we had the urge to do what CNN was doing then, believing that if they could do it, we can do it back here in Nigeria. So passion was the propelling force. We went ahead to introduce in the media landscape the Peace to Calm, which before then wasn't usual. We began asking critical questions, giving people, the voice through Vox Pop and all of that, giving dissenting voices a voice to speak, to authority, and then, to ask critical questions. So that for us was a driving force. But things have changed. Things have moved on. And I dare say things are getting better. I remember those days, of course, you would have to depend on tapes from the United States Information Service, USIS, to get your materials. And then you will listen to BBC and VOA to transcribe and all of that, for you to have it. But today.
Okay, sir. Let me just put it across to you right away. As a seasoned broadcast manager, managing broadcast talents, that are scattered all over the place. Channels is a big major media outgroup there in the US, in UK, and of course in Nigeria and other in South Africa and some other Sub-Saharan Africa. How do you think that the media can use technology so that the various media talents can be managed?
Well, right now, what we are doing is an example of what technology can do. We are thousands of and millions of miles away, but we can see each other. We are talking to one another. I think technology has really helped in bridging the gap and making life easier and making things simpler for journalists all over the world. Channels TV has footprints around the country, and then, of course, some parts of the world. We depend on technology to do most of the things. For example, we have our reporters, tuning into the program, the news program, through the Skype to conduct interviews, through the Zoom platform to conduct your interviews, and even send your reports through other means to send even your pictures, your visuals, and so on and so forth. And this wasn't possible in the days gone by. So today I can have my reporter in the US conduct interviews, edit the report, voice it, and then just send it by link to the studio in Lagos, and then voila, we are on air. So technology, you can't do without it, but it has its own downside. Maybe when we go ahead, we can discuss that as well. Okay,
no problem. Now I want to call on Professor. She's the first female professor of mass communication in the Mass Comm Department, University of Lagos. To please give her take on this, Professor Abigail Ogwezi. Please, can you have the floor? Media and technology.
Well, thank you very much. A lot has been said, and I agree with most of what the other panelists have said. The reality is that we are moving, and things can never be the same again. I had an experience where we started a community journalism desk for a radio station. And what did we use to start it? We felt that we needed to amplify the voices of the ruralites because many media organizations don't even have enough reporters to cover those areas. So we had to train them. And what did we use to train them? Just WhatsApp, how they can record and forward to a particular media organization, and they had to set up a desk, community journalism desk. So with that, it's reported, just like you have citizen journalism, those who report for channels, you know, the station will not have to send a reporter to those points because, you know, it gives them the breaking news of what is happening in that area. But by and large, just as JJ has said, the reality is that it's also amplifying fake news. And the reality is that credible media organizations will continue to do their back-end check to ensure that we remain credible as organizations. But it has really changed the face of news gathering and news sharing, information sharing, dissemination, different platforms, you know, for people to share their news. We saw the huge example of the NSAS protests in Lagos. You know, people were reporting something else. People who were right at this scene, they were also uploading and reporting theirs. But the reality is that the ecology, the media ecology has changed. Media convergence is real, and that is the way to go. We cannot go back to real to real. I learned with real to real as a student, and right now, you know, we have gone to the aspect of having everything on our phone, from editing to interviewing to data gathering to information sharing. And just like you said, Akin Akinyemi already has a virtual studio. You know, I have also gone on a test run on that studio, and you don't actually need to have a physical structure to start a media outfit. So things are changing.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Prof. That's a good one. And of course, I'm going to have Professor Yannick Rice-Lamb come up, but I'll also alert Mr. Akin Akinyemi and Dennis Burns to stand by. So immediately after Yannick Rice-Lamb, Professor Yannick Rice-Lamb finishes, you know, they would have the floor. Professor Yannick Rice-Lamb is the immediate past chair of the Department of Media Journalism in Howard University. Good to see you, Prof. Please, can you have the floor?
Good to see you as well, and greetings, everyone. In reference to your question about science and technology, I think three things are important in particular: how we use them to serve our audience and to understand the audience, also how we cover it, and well as how we become leaders in it. So when we talked about being in a media revolution right now, it's as impactful as the birth of radio and television, and we can help decide where everything is going. I think a lot of media throughout the world, throughout the diaspora, have caught up. But if you look back at sometimes the birth of different mobile devices, such as the iPad or the internet and other different things, sometimes we were not early adopters and we came late to the party for that. And I think that going forward, we need to be at the front end in creating a lot of the technology and a lot of the uses of the technology, and partnering with the, we have this a growing tech ecosystem throughout the diaspora, partnering with some of these tech pioneers that we have around us, also doing more international collaborations, and doing, you know, and looking at the use of different things like artificial intelligence, and watching the proliferation of robots too, because as I think Professor Thomas was also saying earlier, it does not capture the emotion. In terms of understanding our audience, thinking about how readers, listeners, and viewers consume news and information, where they are, and what they need too, and paying attention to those changes too, which hasn't always happened. But going forward, we can do that, and also looking at the brand across different platforms and what works best in different places. Sometimes people are putting the same information on video that they're putting in text, that they're putting in a podcast, that they're putting in different types of social media without playing to the strengths of those different platforms. So thinking about the user experience and what works best there. And then also in terms of coverage and helping people understand science and technology and how that interacts with almost everything. Of course, a major example in the past year has been COVID-19 and the lack of following the science and where it works, where it doesn't, but also adding the historical and cultural context as it applies to us. But also science and technology also interact with politics, how voting happens, how campaigns are run, how voting is suppressed, which is a major issue, particularly in the United States. And then also in sports, in culture, a lot of different areas. So I think we need to look at making sure that we're helping our audiences keep up with these developments and understand how they affect their daily lives. Thank you.
All right, Prof. Let me ask you, Prof. Has there been things you've seen in the media that got you thinking that you are scared of, that some things might give way very soon?
That I'm afraid of?
Yeah, are there some gadgets or some innovations, some apps that you feel that this might come to replace the traditional or the conventional, usage and application of the media?
It may happen in some of the general market media, but I think that, some of us who are here on this program today and some of the people that we interact with, I don't think we're going to let that happen in terms of our audiences. If you look at some stories that have been reported electronically using devices, using apps or things like that, algorithms, they have a lot of errors in them, and they miss a lot of information as well. And it becomes a cookie cutter approach, and we need something that's more culturally relevant for our audiences, and also that adds context too, especially historical context, as well as current context, as well as how is this going to affect people in the future, really answering the how and the why with that. And also, even with the move to standardize, like say having centralized places where editing may happen or producing may happen, that works in some instances, but it doesn't work across the board. So all those things need to be taken into consideration. You just can't throw technology at it without looking at how it affects your audience.
Okay, I hope Professor Anthony Whitson is also listening, because he's one of the proponents of the science and media at Alma College of Communication, Michigan State. I'm going to call Dennis Roland Benz to share our experience also. I'm talking about our technological experience, where you think after that Mr. Akin Akinyemi will come in. You're going to hear a lot. Please stand by, Professor Lam, because we'll call to you on you again, and then the other speakers. And please, Dennis Benz, you have to let us know some of those technological experiences in your everyday operation as the publisher of the Washington Informer that has come to challenge you, and you think that if you're not careful, that this might throw you out of business.
So thank you very much. And Professor Samuel and all the rest of the participants on this call, it's a pleasure to be with you. I think I represent the dinosaur in the room because I'm still publishing a newspaper, a weekly newspaper. We're 52 years old, 56 years old, and we're still pushing. So, and we still mail snail mail newspapers to subscribers who want to pick up, and as they say, feel the ink in their fingers and deliver them to newsstands and all of that. But at the same time, when this media convergence conversation started many years ago, it was something we paid attention to, but very slightly. And to be quite honest, it was not until the US shut down March a year ago that we realized that this slow pace to digital was something that we really had to pick up speed on, or that probably that was the only time we felt most threatened by not technology, but by a virus that was going to put us out of business, because people were no longer able or even willing to go out and pick up newspapers or deliver them, or businesses were shut down, so we couldn't distribute them to places. So we although we had a website, we were somewhat using social media and the different technological tools that are available to us. We just hadn't moved quickly enough to make sure that we were going to still be viable. I must say that this has been a phenomenal year for us. We've grown exponentially on our digital, with our website and our social media followers. But what I'm taking away from some of the comments that I've heard so far, one goes back to what Anthony Van Zwitsen said, is that, you know, we have to defend the professional quality of journalism, no matter what platform we're on. If we don't have writers that are producing, and we're content producers, we're not tech people, we're content producers. And I have to remember and remind my staff every day, you know, you have to do what Professor Thomas said, and that is to be truthful, timely, and transparent in every story that you write. I mean, if you want to write about that person, that family that's lost a loved one, when the reader finishes that story, you want to make sure that there's a tear in their eye. You know, you want them to feel, you want politicians and others to know that the stories that we're writing are truthful and honest, and that we can actually influence decisions that impact our community. Folks come to us because we're local. Not because when an advertiser spends money with us, and advertising is our lifeblood, when they spend money with us, either in print or digitally, they're not necessarily trying to sell paper towels on sale to someone, no offense, but in Nigeria. They want to make sure that they're reaching the people around the corner or in the neighborhood or in the community where they have stores located. So it's a challenge to us because, one, we recognize that technology is what's going to define our growth. And so we really have to focus on how we allow it to, or participate in it to make sure that we do grow. But we also have to stay really keenly focused on what our role and responsibility is as it relates to producing and creating content that when people see the brand, when they see the Washington Informer, that we are a trusted brand. And so regardless of all the noise out there, we want them to come and say, well, let me see what the Informer says about this, right? And so it's a challenge, but I'm taking it day by day.
Let me just cut in there. I've been following what is happening in the US. Fox News is for Trump. I'm so sorry, please pardon me. CNN is anti-Trump, you know, and the other news. Now, I'm beginning to think, what is then the role of the media? Is it to take sides? Sorry, we are not digressing because it's still one of the very foundations of the media. I'm talking about objectivity. So what's the position of the Washington Informer in this kind of role?
Well, you know, we go back to the day when former President Trump said to Black Americans that we should vote for him. What do we have to lose? And so ever since he made that statement, that's what we've been tracking. What have been the gains and what have we lost as a result of his presidency? And the most significant thing that we've lost, well, let me say, while our HBCUs, you know, have won in some respect under his leadership, but we've lost a lot of lives. A lot of people have died because of the position or the lack of leadership that he gave as it relates to this pandemic, not even wanting to call it that. And so, no, we report the facts, and then we leave it to, we have an editorial page, of course, or editorial sections where people can give their opinions. But no, I hear what you're saying. You can point to media that are pro or con, whatever. And we're still traditionalists. You know, we want to provide information that will lead you to your own opinion, but not to give you opinions. Even though, you know, I've never really believed in unbiased media, we all have our biases, and mine is pro-Black. I can't help it. It's just what I am.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The publisher of Washington DC. Okay, so you want to say something?
Yeah, I actually wanted to. Sorry, I wanted to say something with regards to the question you asked, and then we were talking about the future of the media. The fact is that back here at home in Nigeria, media houses have been, media scholars have been talking about the loss of one of the ethos of the profession in the West, and that is impartiality. Because we know that we, as journalists, as media people, we're supposed to be in the middle and report all sides. But unfortunately, with what had happened in the US, where a media house, say CNN, for example, is overtly anti-Trump, and then the other media organizations, pro and so on, that the media across the world and even in developing countries may be in danger of many of them towing the line of what is happening in the US. And so it's what the media should be looking at for or against to be sure that we are not trapped in that situation. Yeah,
that's a modeling theory.
May I just add one more thing to that? When we talk about CNN and the different networks that are pro or anti-Trump, we have to remember that when he came in office from day one, he began his attack on the media, and it was an intentional attack. So, you know, we are not fake news in terms of we as journalists. And he called journalists the enemy of the people, when in fact we are advocates for the people and protecting their right to know. And that's what I think where that divisive line was drawn in the sand from the very beginning. And, you know, the constant attacks and the constant lies that he told, quite frankly, led a lot of journalists to combat that and to push up against it. And just one other thing I was going to say on that same point is that on a lot of the networks, you know, there are journalists that have a show in their names, and they have become they are very partisan. So if it's a show that's a Don Lemon or Anderson Cooper, or whoever the show is, then they have the liberty to say what they want. And I think even on some, not all, on some of the Fox News, I have several students that are working at Fox News now. Recently, there's still some programming that has that tells the story and lets the interviews give the opinion, which is what our role is. As our colleague Denise said, we report the news. We're not supposed to be a part of it. So I think their lines have definitely been blurred between opinion reporting, opinion journalism, and actual journalism. And it's gotten to the point where the audience is not able to tell the difference.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Thomas. Now I'm going to call on Akin Akinyemi. Please, Professor Kebuma Langmia should stand by, you know, and then Bimbo Oloyede should also stand by, because after Akin Akinyemi finishes his own tech, of course, Bimbo Oloyede and of course Professor Langmia would have the floor. Now, Mr. Akin Akinyemi, I understand that you have a virtual. We are talking about the future of the media. Some of us are scared where, you know, technology is, you know, is taking the media to what we used to know. You had JJ used to carry, you know, loads of CDs, and now the story has changed. I listened to one of his podcasts on online. He said, "Oh, sorry, I have to change my stereo from my right to the left," and then, you know, and they caught him on tape. And today you have a virtual studio. Your transmitter, your record, everything is in the cloud. So how are you able to do that?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and all protocols observed. I think listening to what all the speakers before me have said, I feel like a baby in this entire conversation, because we are sort of new to the environment and to the sector. But what I would say is this, as I see it as someone coming in really fresh into the area, is we need to look at the media landscape, both from an upstream, downstream side of things. because the media as it stands doesn't really operate in isolation. A lot of what happens is really advertising spend, is what people are after. They're looking for where the audience is. How do I get to the audience? And advertising spend really drives a lot of what happens. And whether you're looking at it from the ideation process to the contract compliance process, there is a lot in there that technology is impacting. And I think that one needs to look at all those areas in isolation, in a sense, and then look at how we bring them together, right? We're talking about a $500 billion industry in the next sort of year or so, is what some of the predictions are saying. And for me, what we did was to kind of follow the money. Look at where venture capitalists are putting their money, and look at what the pain points are for brand owners, right? And what we found out, there's some research that showed if you look at the top 15, top 30 companies in the UK that had absolutely ridiculous growth numbers, I'm talking 200, 300, 400% growth. These were either fintech companies, HR tech companies, martech companies are now part of that. So it's the marketing technology that's driving that. And then we thought, okay, how do we then get into the middle of this? How do we still do what seasoned journalists do? Don't sacrifice the reputation, don't sacrifice the quality of the broadcast. How do we do that? And that was how it started. And for us, almost 95% of all the footage that we have on our website, we shot with the subject being on a mobile phone. Okay, but then the idea was, how do we take out the cost? I don't want, after the interview, we're then spending a whole lot of time trying to get the reporters to put things together. So what we did was got software that allowed us to stream whatever we were doing 100% exactly like we would want it to look after the event. And that was just revolutionary for us. It meant that I could get anybody from anywhere in the world. We could bring them into the stream. A lot of all the challenges around bandwidth and all those kind of things, they are becoming issues that can be managed in the context of even developing countries. We can manage them. Software is getting more advanced. So for us, the entire control platform for putting our footage out there is software-based. Even the lights is controlled from my phone, from software. Everything is software-based. And we're not compromising quality.
You mean even the microphone, the volume, you can stay in London where you are and control the volume, the lighting?
We can control, again, it depends on how the setup is, but in our case, we can control volume, we can control even way down to color grading of the footage that's coming in on a phone, right?
Wow.
And what we did, this is quite an important point here, is that, again, going back to the ideation process, for us, it was, how do I take existing technology readily available, put that together in a way that someone watching a program on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram can look at the content and feels like they're watching a CNN news broadcast type thing. So again, the framing, the color grading, the voice balancing, the noise cancellation, this is readily available software that's out there. And that's what we did. And so far, it's been great.
All right, so hold your thoughts. We are coming back to you because, wow, you can, the lightning in the studio from your phone, you're in UK and some, oh, that's good. Now, a caller already was asking a question. Caller, please, are you there? Can you go ahead? I think that should be I think that should be the special assistant to the governor of Bayelsa State, if I'm not wrong. Caller, are you there?
Okay, yes, I'm here.
Yeah, are you the special assistant to the governor in Bayelsa State?
Well, I'm the director of new media.
Okay,
the governor
right. So the governor of Bayelsa State in Nigeria. Please go on.
Okay, I was just going to join the conversation about the position of the media, and when you look at maybe political environment. Kingsley Ransom mentioned the case of CNN about taking a position about a candidate. I do not want to believe that CNN actually took a side with maybe Joe Biden, for instance, in the election. I think what the professor said about the position of Trump as soon as he came into office, his antagonism to the media and all of that must have spurred CNN to begin series of analysis, investigation about his personality. I think that's what they dwell on and more to be able to say this is an investigation, which is the kind of person that Donald Trump is. I like to share that fact that even in the US, some leading newspapers take position in the editorial column to canvass a particular candidate. So we are moving away from staying in the balance. Yes, we are neutral, I know, but you must advance because of good candidates, bring out their qualities, and that is whistle. I also like to join the discussion on,
All right, Mr. Kola, I think you are breaking from your point. Then we'll come back to you. There are those in the house, in fact, in the US that can also handle that, help you, can also handle that question. Now, let me go to the next person to have the floor. Okay, I'll first call Professor Kebuma Langmia before Bimbo Loyede comes on board. Professor Kebuma Langmia is the chair at the College of Communication, Howard University, one of the departments there. And of course, he's a well-researched scholar. Prof, are you there? Prof is going to tell us, Prof has researched so much on the traditional modes of communication. And with this new technology, it means that it might render the traditional modes of communication, especially African traditional modes of communication and research, redundant and of course, useless. And we will get to know whether it's true or not. Prof, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I would like to start by, of course, asking for blessings from the African ancestors, and to also permit me and allow me use the foreigner's language to address people of the same race. It's unfortunate, as Sheikh Anta Diop said, no nation can ever develop by using the language of another nation. And here we are still using the colonial language 60 years after independence to address ourselves. This is not true with the Chinese, the Koreans, and the Middle Eastern people. So having said that, let me come now to the issue at stake. The ICTs is just the issue of aesthetics. I want to just make that truth. The issue of aesthetic. It is the aesthetical use of ICT with a plethora of user content and corporations using that ICT to transmit their goods and services that have made it centralized. Giving our traditional modes of communication tools like the vuvuzela or the traditional drums or the xylophones having little or no place in the digital media. And remember, when we talk about technology here, we are talking about electronic and digital technology. And the definition of technology is doing something all in a new way. So there have been technology from birth. And let us not mix digital technology and electronic technology. By electronic technology, we are talking about the TV and the radio and the rest, but digital technology, social media. And this has affected the African modes of communication, the traditional modes of communication, because we don't own the ISPs. We are not even among the, we are not with ICANN, domain name. The ITU, International Telecommunication Union, imposed these things on us. So Africa is still in the receiving end.
So the question is, are you scared that with these technological innovations, digital innovations, that it will yank off the traditional modes of communication? Do you this would ever yank up the traditional mode of communication?
Of course, listen, I'm coming to it. I'm saying that if we in Africa do not even own our ISPs, we don't have a domain name, we don't create apps in order to promote our cultural artifacts, like the modes of communication that you are talking about, where we are still licking the boot of the West, the same colonizers who colonized us, and that anything happening in Africa, they have to rely on CNN, on BBC, Reuters. What is wrong with us on the continent? So if it is going to do that in the future, we have ourselves to blame. Why? Because we don't believe in ourselves. If we can only, remember I was in my book, I was talking about the social media that is being created by Africans, like Niger Pal, or like Chominsa, but we are still with Facebook, we are still with Twitter, we are still with, and WhatsApp is not even owned by an African. Why can Africans not buy WhatsApp? If Africans can buy WhatsApp from Facebook, they can promote the traditional modes of communication using their own languages, brothers and sisters. Using their own cultural. These are challenges to you all sitting here.
All right, sir. All right, sir. We'll come back to that. Please just hold that thought. I'm going to call Bimbo Oloyede. Bimbo Oloyede is the first female voice on NTA, the Nigerian Television Authority, the first female voice that went on air when Nigeria started the first network news. And she's going to be, telling us what we need to hear concerning our area. Mrs. Bimbo Oloyede, please, you can have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation. Talking about the future of the media, I think I want to look at this from the point of view of being a presenter. And I think I need to say that the professional broadcaster, it seems to me, is actually becoming an endangered species. Yes, I'm saying that I think the professional broadcaster is becoming an endangered species. And I'm saying this because, we have 2 or 3 major challenges. One of those challenges is content. Another one is performance standards. And then I think the aesthetic quality of the visual experience. This is talking about TV now. And then the fact that the proactive role of the journalist has become rather watered down. Let me put it that way. And I think that role needs to be enforced. When it comes to content, the problem that we have is that it is often not planned these days to meet the tenets of broadcasting. There seems to be more of a drive for entertainment than education and information, because we were taught back in the day that broadcasters are supposed to entertain, inform, and educate. But now the razzmatazz of technology, has added to the fact that broadcasting has become apparently more of an entertainment aspect, more of an entertaining feat, if you like, than education and information. And the problem is this: when the information is wrong, it is the presenter who is likely to be held responsible first. At the end of the day, perhaps the medium that is being represented gets into trouble too. But the presenter is held liable. And so this period of time where it's like information on the go, verification becomes a bit of a problem. And then when we look at performance standards, we in my estimation, and I think JAJ will agree with me, in my estimation, the standard of performance is dropping in terms of general presentation, in terms of pronunciation, in terms of diction. There's an issue with pronunciation the last prof was talking about traditional languages, etc. Well, whether we like it or not, we are in the space where it is English that, you know, a lot of the time we speak, especially on this continent. But then my stand is that if it is English we're speaking, then let's speak it. And the issue is that as broadcasters, there are many people that are listening to us, whether radio, TV, you know, whatever angle, they're watching and they're listening. And we are supposed to be role models. They're supposed to be able to actually learn from us. But if we get caught up with the swag of slang, just because, you know, we want to be, you know, we want to be with it. I know that's an old term. That just shows you, you know, how far I go. We want to be, you know, the in thing. Slang is not going to make it. Slang is not going to help people who are trying to learn from us. So performance standards are definitely dropping. And because we don't seem to think that it's important for us to use the language properly, we also find a situation where even our vocabulary has reduced. And then the choice of the words that we use is also not as concise and as precise as it should be. Because, you know, well, as you know, diction is about the choice of words. And there are certain words that are much more emotive, much more effective than others. But because a lot of the time these days, presenters, broadcasters are not properly trained, you now find the situation where the use of these words is not something that is common. And as a result of that, presenters find it difficult to go beyond the screen and actually make the connection with those who are watching and listening. When it comes to aesthetics, well, we heard about, you know, apps that are being used these days that, you know, capture lighting and mood and that kind of thing. But give me the old, you know, studio setting with lighting and atmospherics any day, because these are the things that, to me, actually improve the standard and the quality of the picture. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Let me ask you, do you agree that, like you said, that presenters are endangered species? Do you agree that robots would come to replace the human presenters and then do it better and get the proper phonetics? And then, like J.H. mentioned, I'm talking about the performative voice, if there's an emotion attached to it, how you cast the news. I remember one time when you used to cast the news on channels, you know, you were talking about a particular explosion somewhere around Agege, you know, the emotion you brought into it, you know, can the robots emit this?
Well, I think I will also ask you a question. You see, in as much as the language that we're using to communicate is English, tell me which type of English the robot is going to use. Is it Australian English? Is it Canadian English? Is it American English? Is it English the way a Scotsman speaks? Or English the way the Irish speak? Or English the way a Cockney speaks? Or English the way a Nigerian speaks? Which type of English is the robot going to be programmed to speak?
I think I'll leave that for Professor Anthony Van Wetsen, because he's the one that researches it. Yeah, okay. Of course. Now let me call on the other two. Then we have a general house, and Professor Thomas will come back, Jennifer Thomas from CNN, and then Howard University, and then the other scholars will now share collective, you know, reactions. Now I'm gonna call Sonia Ross. Sonia Ross, please stand by, and of course Professor Joseph Wilson, and then Mr. Idris Adeshino. Let's start with Sonia Ross. Sonia Ross, she's the managing partner and, of course, editor of Black Women Unmuted in Washington, D.C. Sonia, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Yeah, okay, good to have you.
Thank you. It is good to be here. First, I would like to say thank you to everyone who is here and listening. And I particularly would like to say thank you to the ladies who are here and participating in this industry. Our voices are so desperately needed. So thank you for choosing this profession and this pursuit that we call journalism. A little bit more about me before I say a few things here. I came out of the newsroom of the Associated Press after 33 years there, as going from basically an intern to a White House correspondent to an editor. And I felt I could take all of that expertise to another media outlet to do what we always have been doing in traditional media, or what they call mainstream media in the United States, until I leave this earth. Or I could use that expertise to leverage the news that should be happening, that should be getting covered, that should be getting attention. So I decided to do that instead. Experience with the Associated Press basically amounts to being able to put information out agnostic to platform, which means you learn how to disseminate and inform people without thinking about whether it is on a broadcast platform or whether it's on the radio or whether it's written word for people to read. And it's been probably the most useful skill set in turning my attention to my own little startup. It's a digital startup. We've only been at this for a few months, and we've gotten attention primarily from a Black female audience. This particular audience clearly has been underserved, clearly in need of information. And doing our marketing surveys, we found that mostly Black women don't rely on traditional media outlets for our information. We go and Google everything that we're looking for. So what we decided to do with Black Women Unmuted is operate as a GPS system for Black women who want to know what's going on from our particular point of view. And our particular point of view is not limited to Hollywood or movie stars or singers or international stars or celebrities. We want to know what's going on with healthcare. We want to know why the maternal mortality rate in not just the United States, but all over the world has been going up, particularly for women of African descent. We want to know what we are doing out here in the field to flip American politics. That is an abiding news story that's been going on since at least 2016 or 17, and undercovered, underplayed by American media. Even to this day, when you see the most historic accomplishment for women overall in US politics, the ascent of Vice President Kamala Harris, which was largely due to the energy and effort of African American women voters.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Now, I did a study on, misogynistic, objects, musicians using misogynistic objects, to label their song. And of course, as a publisher of Black Women Unmuted, you agree with me that women are used as sex objects, on videos. I'm talking about music videos because they say sex sell. Now, what do you think the media, I'm talking about how technology can help, to address this question where the misogynistic tendencies where men see women as sex objects because it's a sex sell, I mean, how do you think that, what do you think technology can help to stop this mentality perception in your publication?
Well, let me just say first that misogyny is not limited to entertainment, and it in fact permeates every aspect of human life all over the globe in any setting. So with a force that broad and deep, are you going to devote all of your energy to eradicating misogyny, or are you going to bypass misogyny and provide what really should be said, what should be done, what should be provided to women? Um, it is interesting that there's hardly ever any desire to change the demand for sexist or misogynistic content about women. It is almost as if the onus is being put upon us to be the change that we seek. So there should be hand in glove operation of women going into the media space and changing the perceptions of ourselves while men work alongside us to change the demand among men for this misogynistic content.
All right. Thank you so much, Sonia Ross. Now, we have just 30 minutes left with the conversation, and then we'll go around, and then everybody will say what they want to say concerning the future of the media. I'm going to call right now Professor Joseph Idris Adesina, and of course, Associate Professor Ejo Adepoju, also queue on. I'm going to call on Dr. Adepoju, Professor Joseph Wilson, the immediate past HOD of Mass Communication Department, University of Maiduguri. Prof, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Sam. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you, sir. We're gonna hear how, because you've been in Maiduguri, where you have Boko Haram, bandits, all manners of things, and we want to hear how robotics can help, in terms of media operations and of course directives in a war-torn region such as Maiduguri.
Yes, thank you very much, Wana. And I bring you greetings from scholars in this part of the world. I call this one of the most terrorized part of the world because people go through a lot here. But that has not stopped people from working, especially the journalists. Terrorism is relatively new because it's about 12 years now since it started in this part of the world. And we've seen how technology has really enhanced practice in this part of the world. When it started, we saw journalists who had no training of any kind in area of, covering terrorism, covering violence. And they were now faced with horrifying scenarios, horrifying situations. And all we could get at that time was largely from face-to-face encounter in terror scenes, interactive sessions with terrorist group and other parties involved, and eyewitness reports, and largely monitoring international media organizations, especially those with very large audience in this part of the country or this part of the world. That is the BBC, the CNN, the Deutsche Welle, Radio France, especially the language services of these stations. But gradually, as situations got so terrible, it was now virtually or impossible to access this group, especially face-to-face. And we now saw the emergence of mobile technology, especially the mobile phone. Yeah, we saw a situation where terrorist group will call journalists and have a kind of a press briefing, interestingly, on phone, mobile phone. And with that, they get coverage, they get reports to actually share on their various platforms. And then gradually, we now started seeing the use of social media and other internet platforms. The podcast, the Facebook, the Twitter. Journalists now rely on these platforms a lot, especially when there's a release of YouTube videos. They actually rely on this for to present their stories, to tell the world issues relating to. And in recent times, we've seen the use of reconnaissance drones, especially that of the military, the Nigerian Air Force. We've seen reports coming out from such reconnaissance drones footages, especially during the military press briefing. They tell you they tell you about the terrorist movement. They tell you about their airstrike. How they've struck some targets and all that. And journalists have been able to leverage on this technology. And one thing we're yet to see is actually the deployment of artificial intelligence. You know, it is not just about the physical activities. We have a lot of activities going on online, especially issue of recruitment, you know, and a lot of other things, sharing their ideology in various anonymous platforms. Journalists have not been able to harness that, you know, here. And we're hoping that with time, we'll get to see that using artificial intelligence, you know, to be able to analyze big data, you know, and get us footages and get us stories that, you know, will be good for especially investigative journalism. I think so far we've seen a great job by journalists here who, you know, rose from no information, no knowledge of, you know, covering terrorism, and now they're doing a wonderful job, you know, getting a lot of stories for people in the world to actually hear, especially regarding the insurgent group in this part of the world.
All right. Thank you, Professor Wilson. Professor Wilson, just stand by because we'll go around. We have just 30 minutes left on the program. And I want to call, I don't want to, I mix up this Professor Des Wilson. I don't know whether Professor Des Wilson is there. He's going to hold on. Then we call on Idris Adeshina. Idris Adeshina is a publisher of alternativeafrica.com in the UK. Idris, are you there?
Yeah, I'm very there. Thank you so much, Wana. And my pleasure to everybody. I want to look at this from, you've given me the topic of technology as how Africa is catching up with this and whether we are going to be disenfranchised with this. I don't want to believe that the technology is in any way bad to journalism or the media entirely. And by the way, he has brought up the best in journalism. You talk of the professor looking at drone technology. I can sit here in my small house in United Kingdom and I can talk to, I've done interviews across the world using different platforms. But my worry there is about we move from being a relay station to Western media to be able to actually intervene in the media space. But my worry is that we are back again as a relay station to Western media. Something happened in Maiduguri. It was not broken by the readers. Do African media who use that as the bedrock of their story, are they standing back from it to look at embedded innuendos in those stories? Particularly somebody like me, who is a member of the Chartered Historical Relations in the United Kingdom, I try to detach myself from the story. We no longer set the agenda now. We now follow the stories. And that's where my problem lies. As Madam Oloyede said, we no longer educate, we now follow the trend. The technology has been very good, but Africa is going to be at the receiving end. The explosion of news in Africa, the sensationalism of news across Africa, what are we able to do to segregate the misinformation there? Because this is the information we are relaying. Let me give you a very terrible scenario that I experienced here. When President Buhari visited the United States of America to the White House, Nigerian media were reporting, who followed the president of Nigeria, were reporting President Trump. Instead of reporting the president of Nigeria, they were reporting President Trump. And that is how bad it's going to be with us if we do not stay back and look at the world of technology as enhancing our job, as giving us the ability, the freedom to do so many things. We are now becoming a relay station to readers. A story about, if you look at the landscape now, you hardly find anything that is enhancing the African there. Every story you see about Africa is either negative. And this is the same story we relay back at home, without particularly looking at the embedded innuendos there. What about the story of somebody in Africa, let's say DRC Congo, a young man has invented the technology there. And inside that story, you find a corrupt continent, a corrupt country like DRC. These are embedded innuendos.
Now, Idris, let me ask you, sorry, I'm not cutting you. Let me ask you, don't you think that with the coming of improved technological innovations in the media, that it will further expand the negativity of the continent of Africa? You published, alternativeafrica.com, because there've been a lot of negative reportage about Africa from here towards the Western world.
Yes, it is going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. Because the one thing Ms. Oloyede mentioned that we didn't pay attention to is the educative nature of our media that we have abandoned now for entertainment. And because of that, that role has been filled with entertainment. The crop of our youth now, if you look at generational change now, majority of those who read and think about the story they read are 50 plus. The majority of 40 downward
Okay, I think we should unmute ourselves. Can you hear? We should unmute ourselves. You can unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Unmuted.
These people, it's a deliberate attempt.
Okay.
It's
sir.
a deliberate attempt. And
All
we
right,
have
sir.
not been able to match that. We are
All
still
right.
working out. I am not worried about technology. Technology
Okay,
is going to advance, but I'm worried about the impact of technology on our youth.
Okay, sir. All right, sir. Hold your thought there. Before I go on to Mr. Ranta, and then we'll do a final round of, and then we call it a day. I want to call on, I don't know whether Professor Des Wilson is around. Professor Des Wilson, are you there? The Emeritus Professor of Traditional Modes of Communication. I don't think he's there yet. I want to call Associate Professor Teju Adekboju, Tejumayo Adekboju. Please, are you there, sir? You don't want to contribute to the conversation? Hello, sir, are you there? Associate Professor Tejumayo. Okay. In the absence of him, I think he's there, but maybe he's not around at the moment. I want us to go back. Then this is the final. This is I think we have about 20 or 25 minutes left on the program or so. And then we'll just go back and then recap what we said and then give our final shots. I want to first call on Professor Anthony Van Witt. Okay, before I do that, Mr. Ranta was raising his hand up. You want to say something, then we'll do the final recap and then we call it a day.
Yes, I want to say something quickly because I'm always there on the front line and with my colleagues. Yes, I agree with what Adeshina has said, that we really need to tell our story. We really need to tell those positive stories. But I tell you that things are changing. You know, long before now, you wouldn't have the technology to break the news, right? But right now, because we have reporters in the scenes in Maiduguri, in Zamfara, wherever, the simple use of your handheld device to break the news online is the trend, is what is going on right now. Long before now, that wasn't possible. You could depend on foreign media, but that is not happening at this moment. Are we doing the best we can? Yes, we are. Have we gotten to where we should be? No, we haven't. There is still a lot of work to be done. Technology would help us to do more than that, but we must tell those positive stories so that we can help to rewrite the narrative that is always there.
Sorry, sir. What about the follow-up stories there? That's where the problem is.
Absolutely.
When you break the news, what other international organizations have done is to go back.
Yeah,
and follow up the story. The follow-up, we are missing it. My worry is our generational change, the kind of information our youths are handing out. There's no amount of information that is going to influence me again at this stage because I've been granted towards the line. I can take the positive, I can know what exactly is right there. But my worry is the kind of information, the kind of trend. We used to be the pace setters. We set the agenda, but now we follow trend. And that is impacting negatively on our youth. That's where they came in and said the knowledge, the education aspect of the media, we are no longer doing it.
All right, sir. Please, let's go on to Mr. Akina Kenyemi because he's doing a lot of beautiful things using technology. You heard him say that he can stay in the comfort of his own, set up a studio in America and UK and control the lightning from his phone, you know, and that works. So he wants to give us, he has something to say. And after this, anyone that has any questions should ask, and then we'll now do a parting shot. Mr. Akinyemi, we can.
Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to mention one thing really quickly, again, going back to what I think it was Mrs. Oloide said there. And it's the fact that the news items around entertainment, education, and they're not exclusive, right? The fact that some people are choosing to focus on entertainment content and others are choosing to focus on the educative content, they're not exclusive. The people are the ones that are demanding what they want to consume. And as people who are in this space, we need to be driven to a degree by what the people want to hear, right? And if the people are telling us what you're giving me is not really what I want to hear, then it doesn't really matter to what extent we try to push that narrative. It may be a difficult thing to overcome. And some of the challenges around follow-up on the additional news content, the way I see that is this. If it's important, right, it sounds like we have certain narrative that we want to push. Now, I agree that the platform that's pushing that is frankly not so relevant. It's the content that's important. And if the market has a demand for the content, then they will keep coming back. And that's how we sustain it as a viable business, because it's that audience that's ultimately going to drive being able to keep that business as an ongoing viable entity. So I don't see them as being exclusive. I see technology supporting the narrative. I see technology meaning that someone in Nigeria could take content that they feel is important to them, whether it's that vuvuzela we were talking about or whatever you want to do, put it out there. If people like it, they will keep coming back. And technology will help to drive that.
So, sir, in essence, as you give your parting shot, in essence, you mean that I can own a TV station, a radio station, without buying the transmitter, the microphone, the OB van?
Of course. You don't need all of that. But like I said, the important thing, and I think someone mentioned, I think it was Sonia that mentioned this earlier, it's the content that's important, right? It's the content you're putting out that's important. You can do whatever you want. You don't need a transmitter. It's all IP based across the internet. As long as you've got good bandwidth, you're done, you're sorted. All the other bits are easy to walk around with readily available technology.
All right, thank you so much, sir. We are going to give a final parting shot, just 2 minutes parting shot, and we'll call it a day. Let's start with Professor. Okay, Idris, please, just
may I ask a question to anybody who's here? This barrage of information in Africa, negative. Who is going to defend that continent?
Okay, somebody would answer. Maybe Professor Langmia would answer that in his parting shot. I want to start just 2 minutes with Professor Anthony Whitson at Michigan.
Can I just defend? Because I may forget the answer.
Okay, please go on. Just be brief so that we can do a parting shot and call it a day.
My brother, the problem started with the education that we started with. Look at what we are doing here. The colonial education was the cancer that we carry with us. And when you carry cancer, you need chemotherapy. And that chemotherapy is not coming enough. Why? Because we still worship the West. And the West love negative stories. And since we have not been Africanized, since we don't, look at Ngozi Ngonjo Iweala. Look at her loving Nigerian traditional dress and showing it in public. But go to African cities, suit and ties. You will not get a job if you don't move without suit and ties. If you don't speak Queen's language, English, you will not get a job. So we hate ourselves, we hate our culture, we hate our own thing, and that's why the negative stories are thriving, my brother and sister. Hey.
All right, Prof. All right, Prof. Just hold on. Let's do a parting shot. I'm going to call Professor Anthony Van Whitson at Alma College, Michigan State, USA. Prof, are you there? You can give your parting shot, just 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, what I really like to say is they're saying about technology that we shape our tools and then our tools go on to shape us. There are two forms of pessimism that exist as far as technology and media is concerned. One is that the technologies have such limitations to them that we can only use them in the ways in which they were designed. And I think that frequently leads to the fear that the proliferation of digital media and user-centered, user participation media are going to lead to pure opinion overwhelming the effort to find facts in journalism. But I also think we have to recognize that there is an equal form of recognition that no matter what kind of limits exist on the technology, people are going to be more creative than that, and they're always going to find new ways to use media technologies. And that is always true. When postal systems were invented, people thought they would be used to write letters. It didn't even occur to anyone that they could write postcards or greeting cards, or that they could use mail to sell things, and they could do advertising through the mail. It's exactly the same thing with the media that we're living with today.
Okay.
The fact that we think there are only limited ways in which digital media can be used doesn't mean that people will not be able to evolve new kinds of institutions, and recognize at that point that the content does wind up dominating the media.
All right, thank you so much. Before I call Professor Ogwezi to give her parting shot, of course, I can see her hands up. I want to call JJ to just 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just give your parting shot.
I pretty much toe the line of Bimbo Oloyede. You could call this a parting shot. She talked about the standards, the falling standards of broadcasting and journalism in Nigeria and in other parts of the world as well. And she talked about the emphasis on entertainment, which has eroded the importance of education and information. My namesake, Akin Akinyemi, because I'm also an Akin as well. Anyway, he said, yes. So, yeah, my middle name, so there's the Akin as well, and there's Akinyemi, and there's another Akin, but that's neither here nor there. But my namesake, who's in the UK, who runs a virtual TV station, talked about choice. Yeah, which is also true. People have a choice. You have a choice between entertainment. You might be someone who wants to know just about what's going on in the entertainment world. You may not be interested in geopolitics, for instance. And you may not be, for instance, interested in sports. You'd be shocked that there are some people. I have spoken to some people who have no interest in sports whatsoever. I have met people who actually say they don't listen to music either. All they want to listen to is hard news. So technology or no technology, the content is key. Technology will enhance your ability to disseminate information faster, more efficiently. But content is more important. It is not the technology. The technology is not going to create the content for you. You have to be creative to think of the content. You have to be creative to disseminate, to put the content together, make it valuable, so that the consumer will appreciate what you're disseminating. I personally like technology. I'm very happy with the way technology has advanced astronomically in the last 20 years or thereabouts. And it is still going fast as we speak. So I would just advise media practitioners to take advantage of technology and not look at technology as a threat, not look at technology as something that will lead to job losses. I think technology would actually create more jobs, because technology gives us the opportunity to widen our spectrum. So that's about all I have to say at this point in time.
All right, thank you so much. Professor Anthony Whitson just said that content it is. I know it's the real thing, because where there's content, people migrate to where there's content, whether traditional or, you know, technological wise. Now I'm going to call Professor Ogwuezi. Prof, can you do a 1 minute for us, so that after that, Professor Jennifer Thomas will also do a 1 minute for us, so that we can call it a wrap. Professor Ogwuezi.
Thank you. It's been quite exciting with various shades of opinion on this debate. For me, technology, I latch on what JAJ has said, and that was one of the private stuff I sent to you, that technology is creating more media entrepreneurs. You have growing citizen journalists, and the platform is quite interactive. It has reduced the killing of stories. It's helping us to run more open societies. It's reshaping our identities and our citizenship quest. So for me, technology is enhancing traditional media, and even looking at African communication system is helping us to digitize our artifacts. You know, we have to take advantage of it. The other day, I was having a virtual tour of a museum, you know, that is telling me the history of a particular place. So my worry with technology...
Langmia will not agree with you. Professor Langmia will not agree with you.
He has his own school of thought. But my worry with technology is that the human angle still is an issue and emotion. We have to deal with it, issues of voice modulation. But for me, technology is great. We are in an era of media convergence, and it's better we buckle up and run with it.
Thank you.
Mainstream media, new media content is key. And what stands out mainstream media is content. And so they should continue, you know, to develop quality content. People will still come to them, and the competition becomes more heightened.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Ogwuezi, the first female professor of mass communication in University of Lagos. Of course, I'm going to call Professor Jennifer Thomas, and then after Professor Jennifer Thomas, I'm going to call them Professor Yannick Rice-Lamb. Professor Thomas, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
It's okay. Remember, you stand by, because you will give the vote of thanks for today. After your comment, after everybody has gone around with their parting shot, you give the vote of thanks today. Okay. All right, let's hear you. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think as we talk about this theme for today on the future of the media, I think for us, we need to, as both practitioners and professors or educators, that we need to go back to the future. And if we remember that famous movie, Back to the Future. But I think when I say go back to the future, of course, we need to embrace technology, as some of our colleagues have so eloquently said, master it, know how to use it. But going back to the future, for us as media professionals, and specifically journalists who are training the next generation of journalists, we have to go back to the basics. And when I say back to the basics, I mean staying true to our purpose, underscoring the critical need for journalism in today's convergent society, underscoring the need and the recognition of the media as the fourth estate, wherever we are in the world, right? And so that means making sure that we produce ethically responsible journalists. We've talked about how the news is shifting and how people are putting their are not being objective or biased in their reporting, but we have to train, and we're guided by different principles. Here in the US, we have the Society of Professional Journalists has a code of ethics. My students memorize and have to commit to memory and stay true to that. So, and also I think in my final thoughts are that we have to continue to tell stories that matter. And I mentioned that earlier, but with everything that's going on in society, this is our role as journalists of color. This is a responsibility, teaching at a historically Black college and university with all of the modes of social media and technology. It still comes down to what everyone is saying, content is king as well as context. So we need to keep our stories in context, tell the stories that matter on all of the issues of importance. And I think we'll be better for it in the end.
Thank you so much. Please, can we have Professor Yannick Rice-Lamb? 1 minute.
Thank you. I agree. I think that we have to control the technology and not let the technology control us, and to not get caught up in the bells and whistles. I think technology is a good thing. We have to harness how we use it. But I think at the heart of it, we have to focus on the people and the good storytelling. I think there's a way to integrate some of those things. Some of the media companies that I've worked for, including a site that I started called fierceforblackwomen.com. If we do things on celebrity, sometimes our site focuses on health and wellness is targeted to women who are over 35. So if we do something on celebrities, it's how they living a healthy life, so it's looking at those aspects. So sometimes that's able to pull people in to kind of lead the trends and not like just do something salacious. And I had a debate with a student about a certain video I won't go into, but I was telling her that it was a matter of context, and another student agreed. I think the other thing is bringing in more younger journalists, younger content producers, creators, also to help tell these stories too, because they do bring a unique perspective and they bring what's relevant to them, but they also increasingly understand that it's not all about celebrities and trends and the latest this or that. And sometimes they get tired of it too. A number of young people have said, there's more to us than hip hop or whatever it is label that people put on them. And some of them are very, very interested in politics, in health, in business, in an array of topics too. So I think that if we keep the main thing and tell good stories, that will get us where we need to be. And I'm experiencing that at this moment. I've been telling a story about the rubber industry in my hometown and how it's affected health. And it's something that I've experienced in my family. And because I'm telling stories that resonate with people and answering the questions they've been wondering about all their lives, it's getting an incredible, response. When on the face of it, some people, initially when I told them about the story, they said, oh, that sounds like that could be boring. But once you deliver it and it connects with the people who are supposed to connect with, they're very appreciative. And I think we can do that across the board and everything. That's been my experience working for all types of media, whether it's serving our communities or whether it's general market media, the New York Times of the world, those kind of places. But the things that are community oriented or niche oriented, we have to really focus on our audience.
All right, thank you so much. And now I'm calling Mr. Kingsley Oranta to give his parting shots.
Okay.
Mr. Oranta is the Assistant General Manager, Corporate Communication, Operations, and of course, Training in Channels Television, Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay, thank you so much indeed. So what does the future hold for the media? Of course, technology, media is going to leverage technology, but the future holds a more discerning, demanding, gullible, and brutally impatient audience. It holds a savage competition between professional journalists and rumor peddlers, fake news merchants, and self-appointed citizen journalists. But I think that if the real journalists and media practitioners walk the straight path of real journalism and telling the stories, bringing in all the ethos, the future really holds a great space for the media industry. But we must tell our stories and we must tell them in a positive way.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Professor Joseph Wilson, can you give your parting shot? Just 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. There are challenges, but I must say that technology has come to stay. And I'm excited because it's giving, the journalist in the remotest part of the world a voice and a face. So that's just my excitement about technology and the journalism practice. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Adeshino Idris. Can you give your parting shot? And
I
then
am very excited because I'm a true example of what technology can do. On my laptop, I've talked to everybody that I want a story from in the world without leaving my room in London here. And that gives the ability to do so many things. I agree very much that technology is going to enhance journalism. But my worry is that we need to prepare as a continent to counter the barrage of negativity that will further not develop our country.
Professor Langria would handle that as also a part of his parting shot. And of course, Sonia Ross, the publisher of Black women unmuted in the US at Washington, D.C. Sonia, are you there?
My parting shot would be that technology is a good thing. It represents the innovation that we've all been sitting here waiting for. Were it not for the advent of technology that we're participating in right now, my outlet, Black Women Unmuted, would not be here. So the question that we have to ask ourselves as journalists is, are we going to just be spectators in this evolution, or are we going to participate in it? Me, I chose participation. So the choice is up to each one of us to make.
All right. And then I also want to call Bimbo Oloyede. I want just two people to do the vote of thanks. Professor Thomas will do for those in diaspora. I'm talking about the Western world, and then JJ would also do for the one in Nigeria, and we'll just call it a day. I want to call on Bimbo Oloyede to please give his parting shot, her parting shot rather.
Yes, thank you very much, Sam. Despite what I said, I do believe that technology actually is a thing. It's just that there are, some challenges that go with it. The best thing about technology is the access that it creates and provides for information. But I will embrace technology on one condition, and that condition is that as journalists, we, I think it was Professor Thomas that talked about going back to basics. So on the condition that we remain truthful and accurate, on the condition that we do not manipulate public sentiment, on the condition that we tell all sides of the story, and on the condition that we exhibit fair coverage, then I will embrace technology.
Thank you so much. I don't know whether Associate Professor Adekwoju Tejumaya on now. Prof, are you there? Okay, in the absence of it, I want to call Professor Langmia. Everybody wants to listen to Professor Kevu Langmia, the HOD of communication and legal strategic communication at Howard University, Washington, D.C. Prof, are you there? Please want to hear you have your parting shot, sir.
The future is futureless if we keep in Africa drinking from the drain of what is happening in the West. The day will bright for me when I can listen to a journalism class in Yoruba language or in Igbo in a university in Nigeria or in Swahili, because translation is a problem. Let's face it, when we translate these things, the content you're talking about, the content does not make any sense to a woman in the rural village in Nigeria. If you're sending the content in English, let's tell the truth. Ngugi wa Thiong'o told us that the future of Africa is at stake because we are hoodwinked to Western languages. And that the future is not there. Chinese have drawn away. Koreans have. The Arabic, why is Africa doing this? Don't you know that translation is a problem and interpretation? This foreign language is not being understood by the larger part of Africans. This language.
What would you say? What would you say to a Black American that he can't find his or her root in?
Thank you. Maybe I have an answer for that, because we are carrying out with a movement to have, let's say, Swahili be the language for the Black race in the next 30 years. What is this? What is wrong in that? If we start teaching in elementary school, we will master. We as Black race will accompany. Will sit one day and understand ourselves using, because when we translate from, people are having mental block when they are translating from French or English all the time. African Union is still using English and French. Journalists are struggling to translate Pidgin, Creole, to send content. We are not telling the truth. We don't want to make money and live luxurious life. Is that what we are saying, the future for Africa? Who will be an African in the next 30, 40 years? We will not know who is an African again.
All right.
They're all confused.
Thank you so much, Prof. I would first call, I think somebody should also give a vote of thanks on the academia side. I'm going to call Professor Abigail Ogwezi to give that, to give a vote of thanks on behalf of the academics. And please, I would first call them on the Nigerian side, that's JAJ, to please give a vote of thanks as we exit today. JJ, please, you can have your floor and say the vote of thanks.
On behalf of the organizers of this webinar, I would like to thank everyone who has participated. Everyone I heard spoke well and had brilliant things to talk about. I hope that in the near future, we will be able to have another webinar like this and look at maybe some other aspects of the media in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, JJ. That's Jacob Akinyemi Johnson, JJ, the Mega Don, the Chief Creative Officer at Silverbait Media Group, the owners of Silverbait TV, and of course, Rhythm FM here in Lagos. I'm also going to call Jennifer Thomas. Professor Jennifer Thomas is also the content provider, of course, to students and teaching them, how to produce better programs and become better broadcast journalists at Howard University. Prof, are you there?
Yes.
Your vote of thanks.
I'm here. I would just want to thank you again for this opportunity. If you can hear me okay? On behalf of all of us who are here, we have several here from the Washington, D.C. area as well, and Howard University. One thing I think that we've seen and that we've underscored today is the one thing that is constant is change. And when we talk about the changing media landscape and technology, if it were not for this changing media landscape, we would not be here right now, having this conversation, being able to speak to each other from all parts of the globe. So we have to see the ways in which we can use technology to benefit us, while we underscore what I said at the very beginning and closing, which is a reminder for us as practitioners, as professors and educators, is to remind us that we have to be truthful, timely, and transparent as we go about our business and embrace this new media era we're in. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Thomas. Good to see you again after so many years.
Yes, it's so good to see you as well.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm going to call Professor Abigail Ogwezi, to please give a parting shot on behalf of the academics over here in Nigeria.
Okay, let me thank everyone for this great opportunity. For me, it's great were my expectations when I joined, and I've really had a good time. And particularly, I've been privileged to participate in the 3 of the webinars. And for us here, it's been quite engaging, enlightening. I think we're taking something back to the classroom as well. And for us, we believe that content remains key in all that we do. And like the earlier speaker said, it's because of technology that we're all gathered here. And so we need to deploy technology to positive use and see how we can use it to enhance our profession and also enhance humanity. Thank you very much for this privilege, and we look forward to more of this.
Thank you so much. I want to say on behalf of everyone that is here joining the webinar, from Odudu Okbongite, Kingsley Uranta, Bimbo Loyede, Yannick Ricelam, Abigail Ogwezi, Kebuma Langmia, Professor Jennifer Thomas, K. Katula, Sonia Ross, Olamide Afolabi, Adeshino Idris, Ememo Bongakman, of course, JJ, the Megadon, Olabisi Adeshino, Maureen Samuel, Ladi Odu Folakun, Marian Kolawale, Anyefio Gudonkwak, Ajibola Abiola. Ajibola Abiola happens to be the immediate past director of National Broadcast Academy, the training arm of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. And of course, Labeke Abudu, Batmos, Joy, Rita Modubo, a colleague of mine at the broadcast sequence. I saw Jay here, and then Professor Joseph Wilson, University of Maiduguri, Tony Taitim, Oluwakemi Akinyola Awefeda, a colleague of mine at University of Lagos, Gift Ola, Lucy, Fadairo Adunola, Fumilola Olakutun, Ola Tobilola Ilori, then Emmy, Ellen Adebayo, Blessing Way, Professor Anthony Van Wetsin, all the way from Alma College, that's Michigan. Kola Oredikbo is the special assistant to the governor of Bayelsa State on new media. Deniji, Ademilola, Christiana, Divine Igbovie, Uko Blessing Amarachi, and of course, Adiza Juma Ibrahim used to be my student at the National Broadcast Academy. To everyone, I want to say thank you and God bless you. I will let you know the next series of the webinar. And of course, stay strong and stay safe. Bye-bye and God bless you.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take good care.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
May the good news be yours.
Bye. Stay safe.
Namaste.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye. Bye.